Right, starting in the park today. I did record a bit on the lane on the way here, but I was just too busy. Couldn't be bothered with it. I'd have to have edited most of it out, so start here. I did a video, I tried to do a video yesterday, but I ended up abandoning it. I was just going to say, there was a tractor came on cutting the grass. Didn't do a very good job. Must have been Stevie Wonder operating it. Typical half-arsed job that you get. Anyway, it was too noisy. I didn't know how long he was going to be, so I just did my walk and then came home. Yeah, he's not done half of it. It's a complete waste of time. Clowns, honestly. Anyway, so thought I'd talk about something different today, which is my not just my love of retro games, but I think why retro games are quite popular. Oh shitty now. Nearly went then. Bloody branch. But yeah, I'll leave that one in. Be a bit of a laugh. Retro gaming. It's quite popular, isn't it? And you see quite a few people doing content on YouTube and on social media talking about games that were clearly around before they were born. You know, these are people in their 20s and 30s. You know, if they were around, they wouldn't have had any living memory of these games. You know, they would have been like 3 or 4 years old, or maybe they have dim and distant memories. I guess I was about 4 when I played Space Invaders on a family holiday to the Isle of Man back in the late 70s. But they speak with a lot of authority, which is just stuff they've pulled off the internet, because believe me, as somebody who was around then, myself, there's no way you know those details. It's just stuff they're pulling off the internet, which is okay, it's fine. One thing I do notice with it though, they don't really talk about how they feel playing those games. They do talk an awful lot about the technical side of it, but not how it makes them feel, which is why I always think it's a giveaway that they never played it back in the day. They don't talk about you know, their memories. You know, how does it trigger anything in their heads with regards to playing these games? Stopping it for a little minute. Well, it means I don't have to spend as much time editing. Just stop here and just let people get on ahead. Because what happens quite often is when I walk past people, try and get as much of them off the footage as possible, and then I sort of edit it around them, so there's not as many long pauses. But yeah, you know, they very rarely talk about how it makes them feel, more along the lines of you know, oh, I played this back in the day. Not I played this back in the day. What am I talking about? It's more along the lines of, you know, oh, I played these games and they're this, they're that, in terms of, you know, who made the game, or what have you. It's all very sort of procedural, should I say? And I'm not slamming them. You know, I think it's good that they are enjoying old games. I think it's good that that's being kept alive, because Lord only knows a lot of video game companies don't do it. You know, the old IP that many of these companies are sat on, and you don't get any newer versions of those games at all. You don't even get re-releases of the classic games. EA is particularly guilty of this. They're sat on some really good 16-bit franchises. Road Rash, the Strike series, absolutely brilliant games. I'd love for them to, even if they didn't remaster them, just release them as a compilation, you know, like their 16-bit stuff. It was great, with brilliant games. And I think the last time they had anything was in the PlayStation era. They did I think they did 3 Road Rash games, and they did a couple of Strike games. But you know, for the most part, good God, it's hazardous today. I can nearly kill myself walking around here today. And the bloody 2 branches have nearly gone flying over. It's because I've got one eye where I'm pointing the camera, and another eye trying to look ahead, and not really looking at where I'm at. It's kind of a philosophy for life, isn't it, that? But yeah, those games would be great. And maybe now EA have been taken over, my hope is that we'll see him going back to some of that old stuff from the past that they've ignored. What I don't want is something like Road Rash being some sort of massively multiplayer crap, which I've got a bad feeling that they'll do that. No, I want a single player. I'd be happy with just doing what they did with these games back in the day. I'd be happy with that, you know. I really would. I'd be thoroughly delighted if they just did those. Just re-release them. Just get them to work on modern systems. Re-release it as a compilation. I think they'd sell loads, you know, doing that. But that's just an example of one publisher. I mean, there's so many different publishers that don't do anything with their old games. Even like some of the newer, older games, if that makes sense. You know, like the Resistance Fall of Man games on PlayStation, on the PlayStation 3, for example. You know, they had a trilogy of them, and they've never done anything with it. You know, they're all sort of PS3 versions. They've never done any kind of a remaster or remake. And I enjoyed them games. The first one was a bit ropey because it was stitched together, wasn't it, to come out for the launch of the PS3. Well, certainly the second and third iterations were really good. And I didn't think the first one was a bad game. It just looked a bit dated because the PS3 had been put back for its launch. So when that come out, the Xbox had been out, or the 360 had been out for a year. And so it just looked a bit dated, that was all. But it still played really well. It was still very enjoyable. But anyway, yeah. My love of old games, whether you want to call it retro or nostalgia, it really doesn't matter. I don't want to get that hung up on terminology. Bit of a magpie. A bit of a magpie. Well, it's a whole magpie. What's that terminology I'm getting hung up on? That was idiotic. But yeah. One game I always come back to play is the original Doom. Now there's a game that's been re-released and redone to death. The old 1993 Doom. That's even been remade within one console generation. Or when I say remade, I mean updated, because they haven't really remade it. They've just updated it to work on current systems. But I always end up going back playing that. Absolutely love that game. You know, I've mentioned it before on my channel. The story of that was Doom. It came along at a time when I was really getting done with gaming. I was 19, I think. And I was just getting bored, because back then a lot of gaming back then. I think that's the same dude that was here on Sunday when I was doing my Sunday stroll. Anyway, back then, games were just starting to be repetitive. Like the Master System, not the Master System, bloody hell, the Mega Drive, or if you're American, it was the Genesis. Been out for a bit. The Super Nintendo, been out for a little bit. Not quite as long as the Mega Drive, but it'd been out for a bit. And a lot of the games were just repetitive platformers, because that was kind of where the strengths of those systems lay, you know, in moving pixels. And a lot of the games were good, but it was just another platform game, another platform game, another platform game. And I was starting to get a bit bored. And the next gen of consoles, still a little ways away. I was a Sega player. I had a Master System and a Mega Drive. And back then I couldn't afford to get more than one console. So I loved playing arcade games. So that seemed to be the console of choice. I liked Outrun, Shinobi, Golden Axe. I love those arcade games. And they came out on those systems. Back then there was exclusivity, you know. You weren't going to see Sega games on Nintendo. Nintendo had a great strength of its original games, its own franchise games like Mario and Zelda. But I hadn't really played them much. I played a little bit I went to on vacation in Canada for quite a few weeks and stayed at my cousin's, who's roughly the same age as me. He's a little bit younger than me, a couple of years younger I think, I'm not sure. I was playing on here. He had a NES. I loved it. He had the Turtles game that was on there that was great. I loved playing it. He also had Mario, and he had, I think it was it. I don't know if it was called Mike Tyson's Punch Out or just Punch Out. He had that. That was great. I had a lot of fun playing it. But while I was there, him and I played Golden Axe in the arcade. When we went up to Niagara Falls, and there was like a little shopping place there, and they had Golden Axe, the arcade there. We were both playing that for ages. I loved that game. Of course, that was a Sega game, and that was the first time that I played that. And so, yeah, I absolutely loved it. And I came back to the UK. I was like, right, I need to play these games. And you know, arcades were the lead thing back then. Like, games that come out in the arcade would come out on the home systems. And when I came home, I still had my Commodore 64. I remember getting Golden Axe on that, and you know, it was pretty decent given the very ancient hardware it was playing. I mean, it was really old back then. You took it, so the hardware was quite limited to be able to run a game like that. But it did it to the best of its ability. The people that did the conversion for it did a really good job. And calm down now, calm down. And but it came out on the Master System. I remember seeing it in a magazine. I was like, oh my god, that was like, looks a million times better. So I ended up getting a Master System for my birthday. I got Golden Axe for it, and it was, to me, that was like as close to the arcade that you could get. But there were other games on there that I loved playing, like Gauntlet. It was a great conversion of Gauntlet. There was loads of really good conversions of stuff. But then, of course, Golden Axe came out on the Mega Drive. When that came out, I picked that up. I wanted a Mega Drive big time. Because also, I think it was on Games Master. I saw Road Rash on it. I was like, I've got to get one of these. And it was a Sega one. It was a Sega console. And so as a Sega person, I got that. I'm getting Golden Axe 2 first, because they didn't have Golden Axe in the store. I got Golden Axe 2. That was great. But then I got Golden Axe, and that was great. It was like even closer to the arcade. They did say it was arcade perfect, but it wasn't. The sound wasn't as good as it was in the arcade. And there was quite a bit missing graphically wise. But it was, back then, it was pretty damn perfect. It was as close as you were going to get. And yeah, got that, loved it. And then there's another game series that's been abandoned. It's come out on like retro compilations, but they've never done anything with it since, is it Golden Axe Riders? Which was, it was a little bit janky. It came out on the PS3. I don't know if it came out on the Xbox. I had it on the PS3. But that's kind of been abandoned as well. It which is a great shame, because that was a really good game. I thought it was really good. It was fun. Janky, but fun. But that's another series that's been abandoned. They did a Streets of Rage 4 a little while back. I've got that. That's actually really good. It's like a modern update that stays true to the original, which is kind of neat. But yeah, going back to Doom, which from I suppose you say a retro perspective is my all-time favourite. I don't think I went on a bit of a detour. That was all retro stuff I was talking about. Sometimes I go off on a bit of a tangent. I am aware that I do that. But yeah, Doom on the I got that on the 32X. I wanted to get it on PC, but I couldn't afford it. I remember at the time there was a store near where I was working that actually sold PCs. They built them, to your spec, and they sold them. I went in there and I said, look, I want to play Doom. I mean, I wasn't going in there saying I want to play Doom flat out, super duper. I was like, I just want to play Doom. What a PC that can play Doom. Because I didn't know anything about PCs back then. In fact, I still don't know much about them now, to be perfectly honest. But back then in particular, I didn't know a huge amount about them. And they came back, said, oh yeah, it'd be about £900 to £1,000. So I was like, right, okay. It's like, I won't be getting that then. I mean, I couldn't afford that. Huge amount of money for me back then. Yeah, it was a massive amount of money for me back then. So there was absolutely no way I was affording that. So I was gutted. I thought, well, I'm not playing that. Not playing on that. That'll be one to miss until I'm probably about 30 years old. Because back in the early 90s, £1,000 was a hell of a lot of money for somebody that was just starting out working in an office junior role. I was getting paid like a few £100 a month, and I had to try and run a car with that, and pay my rent. I had to pay, still living at home. I couldn't afford to move out even. So, buying a PC or going into debt to get a PC back then was a non-starter, because I just didn't have the surplus of cash. My entire pay packet was gone by the end of the month. So I had nothing left at the end of the month. So I couldn't even afford to go and pay it off over 2 years, which probably would have equated to about £20 a month. I didn't even have that left over. So gaming back then, if I wanted to play a game or get a game, I had to save up for 2 or 3 months just to be able to afford one cheapo game. There was I think Blockbuster used to sell off their ex-rental Mega Drive games. So that's what I used to get. And then the 32X come out, and that had they released the 32X version of Doom. Well, that was it, because that was doable. My dad lent me the money to get the 32X, and I saved and saved and saved over 3 months to be able to get Doom for it, because because it come with a Star Wars arcade. It's like an updated version of that. Updated version of the Star Wars arcade. There's like a God, Polygon, I think it was. He was really good anyway. So that's all I had on the 32X. And then I got Doom. And I played the hell out of that well, till I finished it, and then I went back and played it on the higher difficulty. And to me, that was what Doom was. I mean, I know that there was quite a bit missing from it. Graphically speaking, I think there was like frames of animation missing from it. There was levels missing, but it was playing. It kind of was in a bit of a window, I remember. You know, but it was playable, and I could play Doom, and I loved it. And then it came out a few years later, and the PlayStation came out. I was earning a bit more money then, but I actually got that PlayStation for Christmas, and Doom was in this software bundle that they were offering, and I got that, and it was great. Really enjoyed it. That was the definitive version of Doom for me. I know it wasn't as good as the PC, but God, compared to the 32X, it was positively incredible. Like updated music and very much more atmospheric lighting and what have you. But yeah, enjoyed the hell out of playing that. But yeah, like, I can see why, you know, retro is popular these days. Weird hole in tree that lives in there. I know the PC is the definitive version of Doom, but PlayStation's my favourite. Anyhow, I do see why people embrace retro. A lot of it is down to it's the simplicity of the game and the replayability of those games as well. They don't really age. People say, oh, they look dated graphically, but I don't agree with that. Game doesn't get old. Game doesn't age. Technology moves on, but the game itself looks as good as it did the day it came out. Think about that for a minute. Like, people age, they change. Games don't. And I think deep down, they harken back to an era where it was easier to just pick up a game and play. You didn't have convoluted stories that, you know, if you focus these days with games, they focus a lot on the storyline. And with that, once you've seen the story, that's it. If there's a plot twist in the storyline, that's it. When you go back to play the game, you've lost a lot of the impetus that you had to play it in the first place. You know what I mean? Like, if a game is just based on high scores or just getting through the level and the story is minimal. There's no complexity with them with regards to story. The controls are simple, easy to remember. There's a pick up and play nature. I mean, look at Hollow Knight and Silksong. They're new games, but they're done in a retro style. They're hugely popular. Hugely popular. But they're like a Metroidvania game. I just think of that today with, you think about that today. Like, you get these really complex games, you know, and there's like 1,000 different control systems mapped to a joypad. No, I'm not going to remember all that. So, you know, you have to play the game intensely for a period of time, and then you're shutting it off, aren't you? You know, you go to play something else for a bit, and you just think, oh, you come back to play, I can't remember the controls. With something like Doom, or, you know, the old games, they're like intuitive. You just pick up the controller and off you go. And I think that's why there's a lot of popularity with them, because of that. That bench needs fixing. Somebody's obviously been practicing their kung fu. But yeah, games that are simple yet addictive, which is kind of what they used to be. So, a bit of a waffly video. But yeah, that's just my thoughts. I think that Sega, EA, even Activision, they've got quite a lot of old stuff. They've got a lot of 2600 stuff they don't do anything with. Every time a 2600 compilation comes out, I'm always thinking, oh, will we see River Raid? Stuff like that. Nah. And that's Microsoft. You know, that's easy money for them. But yeah, that'll do, I think. I'll go home now and try and edit this into some sort of sensible order. That'll be a laugh. And I'll catch you in the next one.